Welcome to Echo 321, Study Session 8, Contemporary Models of Development and Underdevelopment. Introduction. A recent effort to explain economic development and underdevelopment has led to new insights into what makes development so hard to achieve and also possible to achieve. In this study session, we'll examine the main arguments of some of the new explanations, including coordination failure, the big push, Cramer's O-ring, and the Hammans-Rodrigues-Velasco framework, learning objectives. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Explain the causes of coordination failure. 2. Discuss the big push model and its assumptions. 3. Explain the implications of the O-ring model. 4. Describe the Hausman-Rodrigues-Velasco growth diagnostic framework. Complementaries and coordination failure. Many new theories of economic development that have become influential in the 1990s and the early years of the 21st century have emphasized complementarities between several conditions necessary for successful development. The argument that several things must work well enough at the same time to achieve sustainable development. Complementarists are present when an action taken by one agent increases the incentive for other agents to take similar actions. The decisions are mutually reinforcing. A coordination failure occurs when agents' inability to coordinate their behavior results in an equilibrium that leaves all agents worse off than in an alternative equilibrium. In order for investment to be profitable for an individual agent, a significant number of other agents must undertake investment. The inability to coordinate investment efforts can leave an economy stuck in a bad equilibrium. Often, coordination problems are exacerbated by other market failures such as those affecting capital market. Clearly, there is a role for government in coordinating joint investment. Often, there is a lag between making the investment and the realization of the return. So each agent waits for someone else to make the first move and a bad equilibrium results. Deep government intervention is needed to move the economy to the preferred equilibrium. On the other hand, bad government policy could result in the economy moving into a bad equilibrium. Coordination failure and multiple equilibria. Generally, multiple equilibria with possible coordination failure can be illustrated as S-shaped function and the 45-degree line as shown in figure 8.1. The basic idea reflected in the S-shaped function is that the benefit an agent receives from taking an action depend positively on how many other agents are expected to take the action. In equilibrium, agents observe what they expected to observe. Suppose the firms expected no other firm to make investment, but some firm did anyway. This implies a positive vertical intercept in the diagram. But then, seeing that some firms did make investment, it would not be reasonable to continue to expect no investment. Firms would have to revise their expectations upward, matching their expectation to the level of investment they actually see. But if firms now expect this higher level of investment, firms will want to invest even more. This process of adjustment of expectation will continue until the level of actual investment would just equal the level of expected investment. At that level, There is no reason for firms to adjust their expectations any further. So, the general idea of an equilibrium in such cases is one in which all participants are doing what is best for them, given what they expect others to do, which in turn matches what others are actually doing. Big Push Model. This model is based on the premise that it is very difficult to get modern economic growth underway in the first place, and that it is much easier to maintain than to start. The Big Push is a model of how the presence of market failure can lead to a need for a concerted effort to get the development process underway or to achieve it. Market failures make imbalancing growth difficult due to low initial demand, high setup costs, increasing return to scale, spillovers, and underinvestment. The need for a concerted economy-wide effort. Big Push Model Assumption. Same production function for each sector with N, large number, types of product, and increasing return to scale. In the traditional sector, one worker produces 1 unit of output, while there is IRS in the modern sector. 0 output is produced unless at least F workers are employed. Labor required in traditional sector is LT equals QT, while labor required in modern sector is LM equals F plus CQM, where C is the marginal labor required for an additional unit of output. C is less than 1, reflecting the higher productivity of workers in the modern sector. Average cost is decreasing in output in the modern economy. IRS, while it is constant in the traditional sector. The total cost and the average cost in the traditional sector are CT equals WTLT of QT equals QT and ACT equals 1, while total cost CM and average cost ACM in the modern sector are CM equals WM of F plus CQM and ACM equals WMF divided by QM plus WMC. Consumers spend an equal share of national income on the consumption of each good, so that domestic demand for the output of the traditional and modern sector is Y over N. Y is the national income and there is no savings. Perfect competition in the traditional sector. This means that price is equal to marginal cost, so that PT equals MT of QT equals R. Closed economy. Suppose we have a traditional economy with no modern production in any market. A potential producer with modern technology considers whether it is profitable to enter the market. Given the size of the fixed cost, the profitability would depend on how much more efficient the modern sector is and how much higher the modern sector wage is relative to the traditional sector. Point A shows the output that the modern firm will produce if it enters QM equals Q1. For the wage bill line that passes below point A, like W1, revenue exceeds costs, and the modern firm will pay the fixed cost F and enter the market. If a wage bill line like W2 holds, passing between point A and B, the firm will not enter if it were the only modern firm to do so in the economy, because it would incur losses. But if modern firms enter in each market, then wages are increased to the modern wage in all markets and income expands. Firms in each sector can now sell all of their expanded output produced by using all of their available labor allocation because they have sufficient demand from workers and entrepreneurs in other industrializing sectors. Thus, with a prevailing wage like W2, there are two equilibriums, one in which producers with modern techniques enter in all markets and profits, wages and output are higher than before, and the one in which no modern producer enters and wages and output remain lower. In general, the market will not get to higher equilibrium by itself. A final possibility is found in a wage bill line W3 passing above point B. In this case, even if a modern producer enters in all sectors, all of them would incur losses. So again, the traditional technique would continue to be used. Cramer's O-ring theory. Cramer proposes the O-ring theory based on the Space Shuttle Challenge which exploded. The argument is that Challenger has thousands of parts which worked but exploded because one small and inexpensive part, the O-ring, malfunctioned. Cramer argues that the production process consists of many tasks, all of which must function for the product to have a full value. Cramer proposes that this model can explain why rich countries specialize in complicated products such as aircraft and poorer countries specialize in simpler products such as tea. It attempts to explain the existence of poverty traps and why countries caught in poverty trap can have such extremely low income compared to higher countries. It features strong complementaries in production, which results in the positive associative matching of the factors of production by productivity. Assumptions of Cramer's O-ring model. 1. Firms are risk neutral. 2. Labor markets are competitive and supply is inelastic, so workers are paid according to their productivity. 3. Strong complementaries in production. 4. Workers are imperfect substitute for each other. 6. Closed economy. Ring model. Production is of a single product is broken down into tasks. 0 is less than Q1 and Q1 is also less than 1. Is the skill level with which each component is produced. Q1 can be interpreted as a measure of quality of the component or the probability that the component will function properly. The total quality of the final product is given by multiplying the quantity of the n components. Thus, if each firm hires only 2 workers, the O-ring production function is of the 2 form BF of QI, which equals QI, where B is a term that depends on the characteristics of the firm and is generally large with a larger number of tasks. One of the most prominent features of this type of production function is what is tagged positive associative matching. Positive associative matching. This is the term used to describe the assertion that high productivity firms have the means to attract high productivity workers. High productivity workers prefer to work with high productivity firms because their pay is based on how productive they are, and their productivity is based on the skill level of workers around there. Thus, all the high productivity workers will be grouped together, leaving the low productivity workers to work with other low productivity workers. The positive associative matching effect implies that it is socially efficient to group workers together by productivity. Suppose that there are 4 workers producing 2 components to the production of a product, and also 2 types of workers: low productivity workers with skill level Q1 and high productivity workers with skill level QH. So Y equals Q1 Q2. Output is higher if we group the workers by skill, that is QH2 plus Q12 greater than 2QH Q1. Implications of O-ring theory. Firms tend to employ workers with matching skill levels. Income is higher for workers in higher skilled firms, so that workers prefer to work in higher skilled firms. 2. Wages increase at any increasing rate in quality, explaining the large disparity between wages in developed and developing countries. 3. Individual decisions to invest in training and education are based on the average skill levels of others around you. Multiple equilibria can exist in whichever one invests at a high level or in which everyone invests at a minimal level, leading to lower product quality. Strategic complementarists can result in low skill equilibria. An industrial policy to promote economy-wide quality improvement could result in tremendous growth. O-ring effects magnify the impact of local production bottleneck, which reduce the incentive of workers to increase in skill. The model can also explain international brain drain, as highly skilled workers in developing countries migrate to developed countries where they can receive higher wages for their skills. Hosmer-Rodriguez-Velasco Growth Diagnostic Framework. In simple models with perfect information, it is assumed that firms and developing economies as a whole already know their comparative advantage. But nations must learn what activities are most advantageous to specialize in. This is a complex task that is prone to market failure. Different countries face different binding constraints on achieving faster rates of growth and economic development. HR3 proposes a growth diagnostic decision tree framework for zeroing in on a country's most binding constraint on economic growth. The basic decision tree is shown in Figure 9.3. The tree first divides countries between those for which the main problem is low underlying rate of return and those for which the problem is an abnormal high cost of finance. For those with low return to economic activities, it may be due to low social returns to economic activities. Poor geography, such as tropical pests, mountains, and other physical barriers, may limit the ability of a low-income country to initiate and sustain economic growth. Low social returns may also be due to low human capital in the form of skills and education, as well as health of workers. With bad infrastructure, economic activity that would have yielded high returns may prove unprofitable. Alternative possible causes of low return to economic activities is the inability of investors to reap an adequate share of return to investment, which may be due to either government failure or market failure. The government failure are divided into macro risk and micro risk. Macro risks represent the failure of government to provide financial, monetary, and fiscal stability, while micro risk address fundamental institutional weaknesses such as inadequacy of poverty rights, as well as government corruption and excessive high effective taxation. The market failures are divided between self-discovery problems and coordination problems. For the countries with high cost of finance. The problem may be bad international finance or bad local finance. Bad international finance include inadequate access to foreign sources of capital and problems with debt. Bad local finance may be due to either low domestic savings or poor intermediation. Low domestic savings leads to low availability of loanable funds. Poor intermediation is due to an inadequate or over-regulated banking system that is unable to unwillingly channel funds to economic activities with high returns. Summary. In this study session, you learned that many newer theories of economic development have argued that several things must work well enough at the same time to achieve sustainable development. The multiple equilibria reflects that the benefits an agent receives from taking an action depend positively on how many other agents are expected to take the same action. In equilibrium, agents observe what they expect to observe. The Big Push model demonstrates how the presence of market failure can lead to a need for a concerted effort to get development process underway or to accelerate it. Kramer's O-ring theory demonstrates that the production process consists of many tasks, all of which must function for the product to have a full value. The Assmann-Rodrigues-Velasco growth diagnostic framework proposes a growth diagnostic decision tree for zeroing in on a country's most binding constraint on economic growth. This is the end of study session 8. Thanks for listening.